All right, boys and girls, this is Miss West, and we are going to do a little review on adding and subtracting integers. I know that you have had a few assignments assigned to you and already for those topics, and we're just going to do a little review on what this is. I was in one of your classes, Miss Phillips' homeroom class, Wednesday, yesterday, and we talked about this and it seemed to help. So after this video, hopefully you will be able to describe what happens when opposite numbers are combined. Number two, the second goal, you'll be able to find the distance between two integers on a number line. And number three, you'll be able to use models to add and subtract integers and solve real world problems using sum and difference of integers. So I'm going to go to the next slide. Maybe. There we go. Okay, so you may come across a problem that looks like this, 3 plus -3. And one way that you can solve this, you can, of course, use a number line, but another way to do this are these yellow and red counters, if you have those. If not, you can always draw a simple picture to represent this. So the first number is 3, and there isn't a sign in front of it, so we know that's +3. So I'm going to take 3 of these positive chips. And what you can do to draw a picture, you could draw 3 circles and put a plus sign or a positive sign in the middle of those circles. Okay, now we're going to add, so we're going to combine to that -3. So that means we're going to get 3 of the negative chips. And I'm going to put that right below our first number. Okay, so now you may know what happens whenever you combine. I want to do this actually with a blue marker. You may know what happens when a positive and a negative come together. What happens? You're right, they cancel each other out. So a positive and a negative, they cancel. So I'm just going to draw a line through that. A positive and a negative, they match up. They cancel each other out. Okay, a positive and a negative, they cancel each other out. So what are we left with? You're right, so we are left with 0. So the answer to 3 plus -3 is 0. And you can see here that +3, -3, when I combine them, there's nothing left. So that would mean 0. Okay, so a similar question will be your next question. So what happens if I start with -3 and I add 3? So let's do that. -3, so we get 3 of the negatives. And again, if you're drawing a picture, you could take 3 circles, put a negative sign in those. And I'm adding 3. And if I could have a positive here, or I could just have a normal regular 3. We know that's positive. So I'm going to put my second number here. And again, if you're drawing a picture, you could draw 3 circles, put the positive sign. Okay. And let's see what happens. I'm combining those. So let me take my marker again. Okay, we just talked about what happens when we have a positive and negative together. They cancel each other out. Same thing here. Cancel each other out, cancel each other out. So this slide looked very similar to the one before. The one before I had +3 at the beginning, and I added a -3. So I know when I have those two opposites together, that's going to equal 0. Okay. Now, when this happens, that's called additive inverse. So when you have two numbers together, the word sum, we know, means to add. So when I have two numbers and I add them together, and when my sum is equal to 0, that means I have added the additive inverse. So we just did 3 and -3. I could have 5, -5. I could have 2, -2. I could have 100 and -100. When I combine those two together, I am going to have 0. Okay, again, think of adding the opposite numbers together. Okay, So now let's look at this problem. Jake is playing a board game. His score after the first round is -6 points. In the second round, he gains 8 points. What is his total score after the second round? Okay, so we've read it one time. We're going to go back and we're going to reread the problem and we're going to underline some key words that we know that we have in this problem that are going to help us solve it. So Jake is playing a board game. His score after the first round is -6 points. So I think that's probably pretty important. So I'm going to underline that. In the second round, he gains 8 points. So he didn't lose, he gained. So that's probably an important word. What is his total score after the second round? Okay. So we're starting after the first round with -6 points. Second round, he gains 8 points. So think about what the word gains means. Would that be adding or subtracting? Okay. Gains means I'm going to get larger. So I am going to add there. Okay. So now, there are several ways that you can do this problem. One way that you could do this problem is you could use a number line. And when you're using a number line, I am going to always start at 0. Okay, so this number line doesn't do that, but it's really important to always start at 0. That's like your home base. And we know that after the first round, so -6. So I'm going to draw an arrow to -6. And in your iReady, that's what you're going to be doing on several of your problems. You're going to read the problem and you're putting your arrows where they go based on the numbers or the integers in your problem. So after the first round, we're at -6 points. And then the second round, we're gaining 8. So like we said, that means that we are going to add 8. So I'm starting at -6, and then I'm going to count 8 to the right because I am gaining, okay? Adding, I'm going to the right. So I'm going to start here. Let's use a different color. Let's go with green this time. So I'm at -6, and I'm going to add 8. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to put my arrow. So this is where I am left. Well, I covered the number there. Let me go back. Okay, so I was right here. So again, this is your number. Okay, so that is +2 because it's to the right of 0. So if I have -6, I add 8. I'm going to find the sum, and that's going to be +2. If you think about what we just did in the previous couple of slides with additive inverse, when you add the opposite, if I started with -6, which was right here, think about what happens when I add 6 to that number. We know when I'm adding the opposite, so I get 0. So if I add 6, I'm going to make it to 0, okay? So if I add 2 more, that would be my total of 8. So 0 plus 2 would be a +2. Okay, so use that additive inverse to help you. You can also look at using counters with this. So we've used counters before. First counters are our negatives. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to put a negative in each of those red counters. So 1, 2, 3, -4, -5, -6. Okay. Now, again, if you don't have counters, you can always draw circles. I want to add 8 to that. So +8. So adding 8. So +1, +2, +3, +4, 5, +6, +7, and then +8. Okay. So now what happens when I combine those? Well, we know when we have a matching pair, they cancel each other out. So a negative and a positive can cancel. Cancel, cancel, Keep going. And what am I left with? 2 positives. So that would be positive 2. Okay, that's what I'm left with when I have negative 6 plus 8. Okay, so again, these cancel. They're also called zero pairs. You've the additive inverse here. Okay, -1 plus 1 is 0. That is an that's an additive pair. It's a zero pair. Okay, we've added the inverse, so that is a zero pair. Okay, all right, let's keep going. So here I have 3 plus -4. Okay, so for this problem, we have 3, and then we're adding a -4 to this. So again, you may use a number line if you would like. You can use counters if you have them, or you can always draw pictures, okay? You can always draw a picture. So for this, positive 3. So I am going to put 3 positive chips up here. And then I am going to combine that with a -4, okay? I'm going to combine that with a -4. Now, one thing that I do want you to realize that this is the same exact problem as this, okay? I could also say that this is equal to 3 minus 4. Okay, it's the same exact problem. And we'll look at this in just a minute. Okay, it's the same exact problem. If I add a negative, it's the same thing as this, as subtracting. So again, we'll get that in just a second. Let me go back to the chips. So we're at positive 3, and I'm combining that with -4. So I need to put -4 or 4 negative chips here. Okay. So again, we know when we have the additive inverse, or additive inverse, we are making a zero pair, so they cancel each other out. So here we have a zero pair, it cancels out. Zero pair cancels out. Zero pair cancels out. So what are we left with? We are left with 1 negative chip. So that's going to be -1. Okay. Now, if you chose to do this on a number line, so let me make a number line quickly. And again, it's not going to be perfect. I'm using my mouse, but that's okay. We're going to try to get this in here. And we know we always start with 0. So I'm going to put 0 about right here. Okay. And then I'm starting with 3, positive 3. So that's going to be +1, +2, +3. Okay. So I'm going to draw my first arrow. Remember, we always start with 0, and I'm going to stop at +3, which would be right here. Okay, so now I'm going to combine that with a -4. That negative just tells you what direction you're going. That tells me I'm going to the left. Okay, I'm going to the left. If it was positive, I would be going to the right. So now let me change colors. And I'm actually going to add those digits in as well. Okay, now this would be +4. This would be +5. And if I go to the left of 0, this would be -1, -2. And that should be all that we're going to need. Okay. So again, I am going to go to the left 4. So I'm starting at 3. That's where we ended. And I'm going to go to the left 4. So that would be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I am ending here at -1. Okay. So again, what kind of 1? Negative. I want to make sure and have that negative there. If I would have left this as 1, then that would have been incorrect. +1 is right here, and that's not where we are. We are at -1. Okay, so that would be your answer. Okay, now I'm going to give you a second. I want you to pause this, and I want you to go ahead and figure out what this would be equal to. If I have 5 and I add -4 to that, where would I be on my number line, or what answer would I get there? Okay, and I want to give you one hint. Okay, remember, this is the same exact problem. If I have a +5, okay, -4. And that, my friends, you probably will not need a number line for, or drawing a picture, but let's do it just in case. +5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, I'm combining that with -4. So we know we're going to put our second number here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. You know what happens with 0 pairs. Cancel out. The sum is 0 for those. And I'm left with +1. I have one positive chip left. And we do know that 5 minus 4 is 1. So on your number line, you would start with 0, go to the right 5. That -4 tells you to go to the left 4. When you go to the left 4, you would end up at +1. All right. Moving on. Here's another problem. Let's see what you get with this. If you would like to use a number line for this, it is provided here. If not, you can always draw your circles out. So here, use the number line to find -6, and we're adding a -3 to that. Okay, so again, that negative tells you to the left. We're going to the left. Okay, so let's start here. Oh, we always start at 0, and we're going to start our first number there. The problem is -6. So the negative tells me to the left of 0. I'm going to go to -6. Okay. And then I'm going to combine with that -3. So I'm going to combine. So from -6, I'm now going to the left 3. So I'm going to start here. I want to go to the left 3. So that's 1, 2, and 3. It looks like our answer is going to be -9. Okay. I'm going to, down here at the bottom, I'm actually going to draw a picture to see if we agree with that. So I'm going to start actually with -6. So I'm going to draw 6 circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and those are negative. Okay, -6. So I'm going to put a negative sign in that. 1, 2, 3, -4, -5, -6. Now, my second number is also a negative, -3. So that's -1, -2, and -3. Now, when I combine those, remember what we've done in the problems up until this point. We have had negatives and positives, and we can make a 0 pair. Here, we don't have any positives. So can you make a 0 pair? No, because they don't cancel out. A negative and a negative do not cancel out, okay? If you do something wrong and you do something wrong again, that's 2 something wrongs, okay? It doesn't cancel each other out. So if I want to know how many negatives here, I would just count. -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, -9. And that's what we had in our answer for the number line. So this just justifies what we got up here. Okay, so now for question number 10, right here, I'm just going to draw a line. Explain how you can use 2 colored counters to find 4 plus -7, then find the answer. So let's do that. I'm going to use a blue for our first number because it is positive. There is not a negative symbol in front of that. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and those are positive because It is positive 4. So I'm going to put my plus on. See, this drawing doesn't have to take long. It shouldn't take long. Okay, now I'm combining with that negative 7. So my second number is negative 7. So just like I did over here, I'm going to make those circles in red. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm going to have negatives in those. And then we can see we do have some 0 pairs here because we have a positive and a negative. It makes a 0 pair. Those are opposites. And you could think, well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 positives. If I have 4 positives and 4 negatives, oh, that cancels out because my sum is 0. That's why we did that at the beginning of this video. And then what am I left with? I have negative 1, negative 2, and negative 3. So the answer to 4 plus negative 7, which is the same problem as 4 negative 7, is what I get again. Whoops, sorry about that. It is 1, negative 2, negative 3. So negative 3. Okay. All right. One more type of problem that you may see is a type of problem using the words west and east. So in a problem that was actually left out of the slideshow, it said that school, that you have a store that's located 8 miles west of the school. Okay. So here, that's going to be the store. I'm going to put S for store. 8 miles west of the school. Okay. Now, 4 miles east of the school is Pam's house. And there's a truck, let's say a FedEx truck, who is traveling straight from the store to Pam's house, and we want to know how far this truck will be driving. So one way you can do this, you can model it on a number line. Okay, that's probably going to be the easiest. You could always draw a picture if you want to with the chips. This is probably going to be the easiest because you're using west and east. So west is going to be left of the number line, or excuse me, left of 0. Okay, so that's going to be left. Okay, and so if the school is 0, so here's the school. Okay, 8 to the left, 8 units to the left is the store. So we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the store. It's at negative 8. And then from the school, again, the school is at 0. Pam's house is 4 miles east. So we're going to count that. 1, 2, 3, 4 miles east. So if the truck is starting at the store and travels to Pam's house, what is the distance? So we would just go from here, the store, to Pam's house, which is here at 4. So the total distance would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Back at the school. Keep going. 9, 10, 11, 12. So the distance would be 12. You could also say, to do this, you can use what you've already talked about with absolute value. Now, the absolute value, or the distance from 0 that the store is 8 units. So the absolute value of 8 is 8. Okay. The absolute value of 4, where Pam's house is, the distance from 0 to Pam's house is 4. Okay. So what would I do to find the total? I would add. So in fact, 8 plus 4 is 12. That's another way that you can find the distance. Okay. That was the actual problem. All right, so I'm going to leave these two problems with you, and I want you to figure out what the answer would be. So the total distances of these two problems, okay? And then I want you to write this down, and you can turn this in or have someone, whoever is with you, whatever teacher, to check over this, okay? And then I'm going to go to the next slide. This is just a reminder of what you have to do. All right, you have 4 already teacher assigned lessons that have to do with what we just talked about. You have understand addition with integers, understand subtraction with integers, strategies to add and subtract integers, as well as a practice with adding and subtracting integers. Use the strategies we just talked about with the number line as well